Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to Orlando. Welcome to the leadership panel today at IGSHPA. I'm Sean Dillon with Water Furnace, and to my left is the distinguished panel of professionals. I'll let each one introduce themselves, starting with my boss's boss.
John Thomas with Water Furnace.
Todd Graff with Climate Master.
I'm Joe Parsons with Earthlink Technologies.
Good afternoon, I'm Vitor Grigori with Bosch.
Michael Albertson, Water Furnace.
Steve Smith, Enertech Global.
Wonderful, thank you. So today's panel consists of these fine gentlemen, and we just want to remind everybody there is an app that you can look at on your phone or your tablet and go to a website and input your questions through that app. We'll have that information right up on the back screen. Submit your questions right here. You see IGSHPA.socialqa.com, and you can input your questions, and magically they'll be transported to this tablet here I have in front of me. I also want to remind everybody with the questioning that we want to stay away from anything having to do with pricing or any things about people's products. We want to talk about the industry, right? The theme of this conference is Better Together, and we truly want to raise the tides together. And with that, we'd like to try to talk about some of the industry questions, some of the things that are on your minds in the marketplace, and bounce them off these fine gentlemen up here. So with that being said, there are 2 microphones in the audience. If anybody would like to have a live question, please come up and just wait to be recognized, and they'll turn that mic on. If not, you can input those questions at igshpa.socialqa.com. All right, with that, we're going to get started. I'm going to start with Mr. Steve Smith, if I can.
I knew I shouldn't have said it.
What's next after the tax subsidies?
Well, I think actually, before the tax incentives are to phase out in 20 and 21, we're already late starting. And again, I think I mentioned this morning in my opening remarks was, the awareness and, consumer awareness, consumer education. Because if we're going to change our stars and change our direction, we're going to have to start, now with a planned, concerted effort. It needs to be unified. That unified message needs to come from all of us individually to bring about consumer awareness. So we have to start today for when those tax credits do phase out. Then at the end of 21, that people have the idea of a concept of geothermal as an option for heating and cooling their home, whether retrofit or new construction.
Anybody else would like to answer that on the panel? What's next after the tax subsidies?
I can take that one. I think that the tax subsidies should not drive the industry. We should drive the industry, right? I mean, we spoke last year lengthily on the tax credit expiration, right? And 1 year later, we're here talking about the tax credit revitalization. So it's an example of something that we advocated for together and separately, but we can't control. Something we can't control. So I think we shouldn't focus on something we can't control. We should focus on something we can control. And I believe that the industry needs to be more active. We need to be more active as manufacturers as well. And I think that's a common message. We have to rethink, and we gave that message last year. And I think it's a continuous effort. But we really need to step up. The industry itself needs to grow. Geothermal industry needs to grow. It's still very present in my memory. Michael's presentation last year with the share of wallet of this industry within the air conditioning market, and it's definitely something that we need to rethink about what we can do to keep investing and revitalizing this industry. Of course, it's better when there is a governmental incentive, and that's why we were trying to get the tax credit back in place. I think we were successful with that, but we need to manage our companies and this industry regardless of that. And that would be my takeaway from what happened with the tax credit.
Great. Todd?
Well, I think I would echo, what Vitor and Steve said. You know, one of the things about the tax credits, there was definitely, we saw what this industry can do in collaborating to accomplish something. But one thing I would add is having, you know, gone to Washington DC with many of these folks, is we were often asked, well, what did you do with the incentives that we were given to you for the last 8 years? And we had a lot of blank looks on our faces. And so I think that as we went through last year, it was clearly a challenging year for the people in this room. But I think it also gave us the opportunity to reflect and to take an honest, hard look at ourselves and say, hey, you know what, we got to figure out how we would stand on our own. And I think there's a lot of good ideas flowing around. We heard something from the gentleman this morning with Serenbe and what they were able to accomplish there and are accomplishing there. And those are the kinds of things I think we need to build on. And we have the tax incentives, but we got to do something now so that we're not in the same position 4 years from now that we were in 2017.
Okay. And as you log on to IGSHPA.socialqa.com, you'll see off to the left on those questions, there's an arrow. If you feel like that question should be ranked towards the top, touch that arrow and it'll rank it a little bit higher on the screen here. So I have, how do you plan to grow our industry beyond the current 1%? We'll go to John Thomas.
Yep, thanks, Sean. I think we should reflect on what Steve Nygren said this morning as a first step. There's a lot of engineers in the room here. There's a lot of engineers that are passionate about the technology. And it's great when we're talking to each other, but when we're trying to develop the market and focus on engaging with either homeowners or users on commercial real estate or influencers like architects and other firms, I think we maybe use a little too much technology jargon in our vocabulary. And I think if we start thinking of ourselves as thermal energy consultants and soften how we talk to homeowners and how we do our marketing, I think we should be focusing more on why they should be considering geothermal and not so much on the how it works and what it is.
Joe?
I totally agree with that. I think it comes down to creating awareness, though, at the consumer level, consumer being typical homeowner, consumer being building owner. Over the last 60 days, I've been doing what I call my supermarket poll. So when I'm in the line at the supermarket, I ask at least 2 people that are around me to know about geothermal heat pumps. You know, and there's about 8% of the population that has heard of geothermal heat pumps. And remarkably, even though we feel like we have a great victory in getting the tax credits reinstated, the people who knew about geothermal heat pumps were still unaware there was a tax credit available. So I think we're doing a very poor job as an industry of creating that awareness, and until we do that, we're not going to grow as we should.
Okay. Michael?
I'll add to that. You know, I was talking to Steve after his presentation this morning. I told him he got a chuckle out of me because he was searching for additional information on a quiet heating and air conditioning system, because you go out the front door and it's a courtyard, you go out the back door and it's a wooded space, it's a wildflower area. And he said all he was getting from the folks he was talking to was, you know, engineering and technology. And, you know, sadly, it kind of made me chuckle, because going back to what John Thomas had said just a little while ago, is we spend so much time talking about technology and trying to explain to a consumer how a refrigeration system works and explain the magic of why we don't have to have a noisy box sitting outside right on our patio. And we do not spend enough time with the consumer, number one, understanding or identifying what that persona is that drove that consumer to ask for a geothermal heat pump solution. And that, you know, that persona could be comfort, it could be environment, it could be efficiency, and sometimes it could be tech. I mean, half you guys, and gals, you know, if you're engineering related and tech related, you want the best of the best, and you want you might want the Tesla, or you might want, you know, a geothermal heat pump system, and we certainly understand that. but there's so much more value as far as a value proposition goes that a geothermal heat pump system delivers to the consumer. And you think about it, I mean, we have a technology that provides heating, air conditioning, and hot water more efficiently than any other system out there. And it's the only system that will actually pay itself off. And I don't think we give merit to our technology when we're talking to the consumer with the value proposition. We keep driving back and trying to sell the magic that's in the box or in the system or in the ground loop. So our focus moving forward gets back to Steve's comment on consumer awareness, consumer education, and Todd's comment on, we also need to talk to builders, we need to talk to developers, and also re-engage the utilities. If we go back in 1980-ish, 80-ish, and we're running around the country trying to get somebody motivated to understand and support our technology, the guys that really helped us springboard, the segment of the industry that helped us springboard into this market was the utilities. Very, very important. And we need to re-engage the utilities and work with them.
Thank you. Okay, how do you see the Internet of Things affecting the geothermal industry? I'll start with Todd.
Well, as we look around the room in here, we've all been around for a while, right? But when I go look at my kids, and I'm sure as you look at your kids, their life is through their phone, or whatever, and they don't want to even think about, that the device that's on a wall. So, I mean, it's certainly going to be about controls and how does our product connect into where everything else is going in the home. Whether it's their security system, what's happening with their entertainment system. People want to be able to experience their lives through their mobile devices. And so our products are going to have to mimic that and be part of that. And people want information instantaneously, when they want it, where they want it, how they want it. And our products are going to have to fit into that, just like all the other products that consumers are putting in their homes.
Anybody else? On the Internet of Things? Steve?
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of chime in there a little bit. And it's knowing your consumer as well. So when you look at how how social media has taken over, and that's where most information is found. You're going to find it on your cell phone, on your computer. That's where you're going. And our consumer, well, coming from my perspective, the consumer is changing and has changed. When I started promoting geothermal, I was 100% to baby boomers and possibly their parents. I call them traditionals. I'm not sure what the official generation name is, but it was to baby boomers and traditionals. Now it's millennials are spending much more and a big buying power of the U.S. economy than the baby boomers. And so you've got Gen Xers and baby boomers. They have a completely different, their hot buttons are completely different than their parents, the boomers. Back when I worked at electric co-op, I sold it on return on investment, and I sold the technology, how it works, and I was the geek that had to explain all that. But they don't necessarily care how it works. They care about what it will do for them. They want low anti-carbon renewables, and they're searching constantly on their phones on the internet. But again, we have to know where our who are the demographics, and that we have a changing generational changes going on.
So to springboard off of that, how do we get those millennials to become champions for Geo and discover those benefits and actually promote them as millennials?
I mean, I think just picking up on the previous answers, Internet of Things is one way to get the message across to the newer generations. And I believe it's also tied to what we are talking about earlier, or on getting the geothermal benefits more into the lifestyle argument or into the comfort environment, consumer goods environment, more than the engineering, jargon, or community, or the technical approach. I think Internet of Things is a vehicle to get to newer generations that will naturally search for products through the internet, but we need to adapt our messages, our standards as well, so our products need to be connected, and I think we as industry need to raise the standards to connectivity and digitalization, and we need to raise the standards and to change our message throughout Internet of Things, throughout connectivity, throughout the new vehicles of communication, to engage the new generation who won't be engaged necessarily by a brochure, by a training with old standards. They will not like to be sitting on a classroom for 2 hours. That's too much time. They will not be focused for 2 hours, and I think we see it on a daily basis. They want concise and clear messages in a technological manner, but it's on us. We need to change the industry. The industry will not change by itself.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and make a comment, Sean. You know, I think, first of all, the demographic statistics say millennials will be half of the consumer economy by 2030. So we're graduating baby boomers, turning or birthdaying baby boomers at 10,000 people a day, turning 65. Not all of them are retiring, but we're turning 65 at 10,000 a day. 2030 is not that far away. I think in general, millennials are going to be more receptive to purpose-driven solutions that operate in a more harmony way with the environment than the extra generation and the baby boomers have been. So I think we've got an opportunity with the generation becoming a bigger part of the consumer economy to grow this industry and grow this technology adoption, if you will, because I think they'll understand it. I think they've learned more about the environment through schooling as well as public interest than we have in prior generations. I'll just come back to the Internet of Things comment. How many professional contractors do we have in the room, commercial and residential? How many contractors? Okay. I think the other aspect, we talked about control and how control will integrate with our machines. I think the remote telemetry and capability to do remote diagnostics and troubleshoot is a huge opportunity in the HVAC industry. And I think we're struggling right now, and this is in the general industry, I think we're struggling right now to figure out how to turn that into a subscription business model and expand the current service contract concept that exists today, where you visit the machine twice a year, you do typical preventative maintenance, and you see if there's degradation or issues that need to be resolved. So I think as we're adopting millennials into the technician's role, I think they're going to be expecting those kinds of diagnostic tools that I don't have to visit and touch the machine in order to diagnose it. So I think there's a big transition opportunity and a change in the business model for the contractor to use remote diagnostics, troubleshoot, and if you do have to visit the machine, you usually know what parts you're going to replace by the time you get there, before you leave the shop.
Thank you. So this conference and expo brings us together as a market and the whole technology, but whose responsibility is it to spearhead this effort to come together as a market? Is it IGSHPA? Is it GEO? Is it another organization?
To spearhead which effort specifically?
To come together as a market as a whole to promote the technology.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you keep looking at me, Sean.
Oh, you keep looking at me.
Actually, all the above. And it really is, because, I guess there was other organizations, well, GEO and IGSHPA are, in the forefront here as we're talking right now. But when we were working, on the Hill in D.C. trying to regain the tax credits, we had NGWA, we had NRECA, home builders. I mean, Doug had a 2-page list of all the affiliated associations who were in favor of us, regaining those tax credits. But coming back around is it's going to take all of us as a unified message And it's really, I'll say both organizations and all those other organizations I mentioned. But the one thing we have to do at some point is have that unified message that is repeated over and over again. Not to be a copycat, but I mean, we've said it here amongst ourselves before, but the got milk. I mean, the dairy industry, they were united in that. Every dairy farmer had it all over their vehicles. It was on TV. It was the same message. Propane industry's done a pretty good job of message. I haven't seen them for quite some time yet, but remember the white T-shirt with the guy with electricity and getting zapped all the time, and the propane guy making fun of him. But their message, whether it was in print or TV or on the internet, was a clear, consistent message, and I think that's what we have to come to. Whether we all agree with it or not, we would all agree that we have to do it and deliver that same message.
I think our theme that is right up there behind us I think that's our answer. We're, better together.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain, if you look at our small segment of the market and the associations that represent that segment of the market, IGSHPA doesn't have all the solutions, and GEO doesn't have all the solutions, and another group may not have all the solutions, and we as manufacturers, even a group of manufacturers, don't have all the solutions, but we'd be better together. And I think the thing that is needed is to have a clear understanding of what the skill sets and the resources and the capabilities are of all of us together, and have that alignment, similar to what Steve was saying, have that alignment on what is that voice and what is that message that we need to put out for educating the consumer and the builder and developer and so on and so forth. And I think if you think about it, if you have an aligned message coming from multiple sources, that message is going to be stronger than a single message coming from a single unit. They're going to hear it from more different, if I can use that phrase, more different places, and they're going to hear it. They're going to have that consistency and that alignment with that message. So it's really, go back to our theme. Your answer is right behind us. Better together. We just need to understand who's better at what.
So, what are some of the things you are doing to attract the next generation of geothermal leaders to take us to the future? We have decades and decades of experience here, but what are we doing to grow that next line of leadership? I'll start with Todd.
Yeah, so, this isn't if we're honest with each other, this isn't the most glamorous and attractive industry, when you go and talk to an 18 or 19-year-old kid. But we're all passionate about it, and so I think that what we got to do is we got to get in front of the people that are of that age and excite them about this. We're obviously, located in Oklahoma, and we do our best to partner with Oklahoma State and other universities to have projects, have interns, get people engaged in our industry early. If they get engaged in someone else's industry, then they're going to tend to go that direction. So, what we're doing is we're reaching out as soon as possible to try to get as you described, the best and the brightest, to get into our industry. And we got to get them early, because after, they've been out doing something else for 5 or 6 years, it's going to be hard to turn them. So that's where our efforts are, in terms of bringing people in. And the second thing is the people that we do have, at least in our business, is, we're putting, development programs, coaching programs, leadership programs in place so that we are preparing, let's call it the next levels in our organization to step up as, people move up and onward as well. So those are the two things we're doing.
Anybody else like to comment on how we're growing the next generation of geothermal leaders?
I'd like to comment. I think we all know we're in an industry that is struggling to attract new talent, not just the geothermal heat pump industry. The HVAC industry as a whole is having that issue. We hear that throughout the industry. I think geothermal has an advantage, and I think we need to teach the technicians not only to be technicians, but how to be good business people, actually how to make money in this industry, and I think that really drives their decision more toward geothermal than mainstream geothermal, which is, a unitary product. So that would be my suggestion. I think we need to create some awareness, not only from a technical standpoint, but the business side of geothermal.
Vitor?
Can I add something, Sean? Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely a topic that I have passion about, and I think unlike my colleagues here on the panel, I don't have not even close to the experience that you guys have on this business and on this industry, but I think what catches me and what I think we can use to attract people is really the purpose. The purpose of this industry is noble. So actually what we do is we make the world a better place. The technology we sell is environmentally friendly. It's cutting-edge technology. It makes our life better. It was because of that Steve Nygren went to geothermal in Serenbe and built up that community that now is a living and breathing green community around Atlanta, a crowded place, one of the crowdedest places in the U.S. So I think there is a purpose in this industry, and I think the purpose behind the energy efficiency, behind the cutting-edge technology need to be the make or break factor for younger generations to jump in this industry.
I guess I would just comment, Sean, we can talk about the millennials again. They're more purpose-driven minded and have an affinity towards aligning what they're doing with an organization or a business model that has defined purpose. And so I think to build on Vitor's comment, if we think about what we're doing here is transforming the way society uses energy and expanding the conversation on thermal energy versus the traditional sources of utility energy that are supplied, I think you get the opportunity to have a deeper conversation with the younger generation. And I think if you talk about the efficiency in the perspective of we're actually on a mission to preserve resources for the coming generations and work in better harmony with the environment, I think we can get their attention.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. There's been a lot of activity in the state of New York as well as up in Canada and Ontario. What can the industry do to help replicate those efforts and successes like there are in New York and Ontario right now?
I'll go ahead and start with that one. I think the key thing there is the local support. The local heat pump associations, when I say local, the statewide heat pump associations, or the province of Ontario, OGA, and nationally, like New York Geo. We've seen where states have a strong organization that they get the support and I'll say the grassroots in that state behind them, or the province support, and I think that's where it's key. As I guess on the sales side of it, we try to come into a state and develop our market share or grow our market share in states where there is a good unified front of an organization. It's much easier and much more well known in other states when we don't have that. It is very difficult to get any kind of movement in a state without that state involvement, a state leader or two, probably a group of leaders, but a lot of times just back to one or two people that's doing a lot of the work, and that's always greatly appreciated. But I think that's where it starts, is in each state and a strong organization. With that said, we've seen a lot of states over the years have a good, strong organization that ends up, with a high number of members, and annual conference is very strong, and then it starts tailing off because, again, we can't stay unified, we can't stay glued and, on message. So it takes a very strong state organization, or the ability to have a strong state organization, I believe, in each state or province.
Anybody else like to comment?
I might just add real quick, I think we need to continue doing a job of recognizing those successes and helping those who have, say, just use New York Geo as an example, and celebrate those successes and what they are, and utilize that talent and the know-walks of New York Geo. Folks like that, when they have a successful program, they are eager to share how they develop that program, why they develop that program, and we need to utilize those resources whenever we're wanting to penetrate into a new market or maybe get a similar program set up somewhere else. And I think the engagement of the leadership of those programs similar to New York Geo and engaging them in other market areas, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah, and I think along with that too, just think as Michael was talking there, is to know our states. I mean, you need to be honest about it and open about it. In states that are more driven, to renewables and those kind of things versus states that aren't, I mean, you're going to have better success with, the politics leaning that way in those states to deliver our message, or to at least listen to our message and to carry it out. So that would depend on each state as well.
Thank you. Okay, we have one question from the floor. Go ahead, Jack.
They just said keep it clean. Should I move the mic down for you? Let me move this mic down a little bit. First of all, I want to thank everybody up on that stage because, as I've said in some of my presentations, that Better Together is actually true this year. But the other thing was, and I've had discussions with everyone up there except for Todd, about the fact that we keep eating our own lunch, about not expanding the market, because if Steve finds a job, somebody from Water Furnace cuts them, somebody from Bosch cuts them, somebody from Climate Master cuts them. Can I ask for the leaders up there to let this be known to their companies or to their salesmen and reps that we shouldn't be cutting one another's throat. If we're going to expand this market, let's go out and find. We have less than 1%. That gives us 99% to go after. So we're that Better Together. We should be on every truck, on every heat pump, on every company here that's in IGSHPA or Geo. This is the start right now. The hell with the tax credits. They're going to go away. If we don't do something about it now, and this is the start. I'm telling you, it's the first time in 5 years, for those of you that don't know, that every single one of the major manufacturers are represented on that stage. And every single one of them have bought into this. So I would implore you to talk to your minions and tell them. I forgot that was a movie, wasn't it?
Is that a question? I'm waiting for the question, Jack. Is there
there's
got to be a question in there somehow?
It's a lecture. Here's my question. Can I get a commitment from the leaders on that stage to grow the market exponentially rather than just trying to keep it small?
I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you said you've talked to everybody but me, so let me go first. So we're all bought into that. Growing the pie is of much greater interest to us than figuring out who's going to get a bigger slice of the pie. I've often used the analogy of, the NFL. Absolutely true that, the owners of the NFL and their teams are trying to make it to the Super Bowl and win every year. But this is more like we're the NFL, being that the NFL prospers, all those owners, all those teams, all those players, all those fans prosper by the success of the NFL, regardless of who wins the Super Bowl in any given year. And so I view what we need to do as an industry very similar to that, in that we need to make our league, our industry, bigger, better, bolder, and we will all benefit just by natural growth of the share that we have today, regardless of trying to undercut, or whatever word you used earlier with our minions, to get better, individually. So it's definitely a collective effort. It's been mentioned, this theme of the conference this year, I think, reflects well the conversations we've had over the past 12 to 18 months, and we got to keep going with it.
Michael?
Yeah, I'll just add something to that. We get a question a lot of how are you going to get bigger than 0.5% or 1% of the whole HVAC market. And the question was kind of out there already, and we said, well, it's consumer awareness and consumer education, builders, contractors, so on and so forth. But sometimes, we say consumer awareness because we are asking for the consumer to knock on our doors and say, I want you to quote me a geothermal heat pump system. That's why we want them educated, right? But I think if we do a better job let's call a spade, look in the mirror. How many of us as architects that are in the room, or engineers that are in the room, or mechanical contractors that are in the room, or say you drill water wells, how many of us offer a solution unsolicited to consumers for a geothermal solution? They may come to you and say, well, okay, Mr. Engineer, I'm building this job, or I want, I'm erecting this building, or my HVAC broke and I need a new heating and air conditioning system. How many of us actually lead? You're here because you've got a high level of confidence in our technology and the value proposition that we bring to a residential and commercial consumer. But how many of us actually lead every single job with a solution for geothermal, if we truly, truly believe that? And I threw the well drillers in there too. Well drillers are out there and they get a call to put a well in on somebody's house. They've already got the rig on site. How many of them are asking, what kind of heating and air conditioning system are you putting in this home or this commercial building? So I think it's two ways as far as growing the market. We always want to go back and say, well, we need to educate the consumer. I think we need to look in the mirror and understand the value of pitching and offering a geothermal solution to residential and commercial consumers at every turn of the hat that we possibly can.
Thank you. So, as recently as today, there's been announcements in the news and Twitter regarding funding for a company called Dandelion. And there's a question as to what your thoughts are on the Dandelion model, and why they may be not here today.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and comment. I have no information on why they aren't here today. For whoever asked the question, I think the thing from what I've learned from the Dandelion model, and we've said it ourselves in our own sales team meetings at times, is there's a lot of room for improvement on how we approach the retail effort and the retail conversation. And it weaves in a lot with the messaging we were talking about earlier and what Michael was just talking about what we expect from the consumer. And access to consumer and changing their mind and expecting them to come to us with a soft spec, that's a pretty tall order. So I think what Dandelion's doing is they're revolutionizing a bit the retail aspect. So they're doing focused marketing efforts, and they're making it a community conversation in many cases where they've been focused, and they're raising awareness in, I'll just say, at a community level. Grassroots level. And I think there's things that we can all learn from that. They're putting college kids on the street with T-shirts and going through neighborhoods, like, selling high school athletic booster tickets. It's that same kind of model. And I think there's still space for that if you want to raise consumer awareness. So I think the retail side of it is what we can learn from them.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, so if awareness is the key to adoption, can you speak to what each one of your brands are doing for that awareness and to help grow it? Steve,
Say that question.
what's your brand doing to help the market awareness that we all are looking for with geothermal heat pumps?
Okay, we know we've got 3 different brands, so sometimes that message gets, tough, but I believe the best way to say it is, we try to educate on geothermal first rather than a brand name, because, we're consistently saying that, whether it's GeoComfort or Hydron Modular or Tedco, one of the 3 brands, we don't have, I don't think any of us have enough money to spend on our brands and promote the brand and have people chase that. We do believe in promoting the technology first, and then naturally we want them to take that brand that we're promoting. So we still believe in promoting the technology first, as far as what I shouldn't say not technical side, but the technology, what it can do for the consumer, the benefits of the system, and then sell them. Naturally, we want them to come to one of our brands. So we've kind of adopted that some time ago, because we truly believe we'll never have enough advertising funds to put up a brand name and somebody know what that is. I always use the Nike swoosh. I mean, we're not going to be able to spend enough money to see that swoosh and know what that is. And yeah, I want that tennis shoe. So the world knew what a tennis shoe was before Nike came along, or it was so popular. Okay, we have to tell people about the tennis shoe. Okay, and then the brand. So that's kind of how we look at it.
Vitor?
I mean, I think, this is not about our brands. I mean, this conversation is not about our brands. This conversation is about our industry and our efforts. So I think everyone sitting in this panel does the best to promote the technology, to promote, of course, our brands. We're businessmen, we run companies, and that's what we are paid for. But I believe that what we need to get better is really on this mantra of being together, right? And I think that's at times tough for an industry, because we, on a daily basis, are outside fighting for market share, fighting for jobs, and we need to communicate more and communicate better. So I believe that the brands themselves, our brands, I think our companies are well known. We are the experts. We are reference points in the market, and I think we are because we invest, right? We participate in events. We show our brands, and we are here, right? I mean, you're just saying that we have a full house of manufacturers. It's not about us. It's definitely not about us. It's really about how can we really promote the technology. And I believe the communication amongst ourselves can improve, and the cooperation with any sort of collusion of antitrust can also increase to promote this industry beyond our borders, beyond our brands, beyond our contractors, beyond our customers. It's really to enlarge the size of the pie, as Todd was saying. And on that note, we need to get better together, I would say.
Better together, okay. Anybody else?
I think, Sean, the ideal sales presentation, and this is the message that we're trying to convey to companies selling our particular products, is to not even mention the product initially. I mean, that's part of the closing. We have a solution, but we need to provide the benefits of geothermal heat pump technology to the end user, regardless if it's residential or commercial. Show them the benefit of the product. Let them make the decision. Let them understand what we're offering to them in the form of a product, and then let them make a decision as to a particular type of product or brand of product. It's creating that awareness again at the personal level. And the companies that are successful, I think, in selling geothermal heat pumps really share that passion when they go out to share that information with the consumer. If you can get that point across, I think you're you're very close to winning that battle of selling the system.
Okay, so what role do you think IGSHPA plays in growing our industry? Put that one up in the air for anybody to grab.
As a
New president.
the newly elected, the wax isn't even dried yet. Well, and I made a couple comments this morning, and I think where IGSHPA can really help in the growth of our industry is IGSHPA is somewhat synonymous from the brand and the name with ground source heat pump technology. And I was mentioning, some of the cornerstones or the foundation that IGSHPA had, and one of the things that IGSHPA did so well for a number of years is research and development. And I also mentioned this morning, I was really, really excited in a board meeting yesterday, whenever Zhao Bing was giving the update on the research committee, and his statements and his asks and the passion and enthusiasm that he had when he was making those statements in that presentation, it gave me a little bit of excitement that, we really have an opportunity. He defined, identified and defined some things that we need to do as IGSHPA for the industry to improve some of the technology side, whether it's proper design of the ground loop or the system, or maybe a different style of ground loop, and several other things. But that's what IGSHPA cut its teeth on. It was with R&D. And the other thing, it's a stronghold, is if we're going to grow the industry, we better be careful about growing the industry at a quicker pace than what we can properly and professionally train the industry. It's the engineers doing the design and the layout and the engineering work on the jobs. It's the contractors that are, sometimes doing their own design and layout, installation, commissioning, servicing, so on and so forth, and also the loop contractors. So we need to be, training from IGSHPA, research and development, advocacy, working together. Again, we're better together, and IGSHPA has some tentacles out there that reach far and deep into adjacent markets, adjacent industries, and adjacent associations. So, IGSHPA is a strong voice, and I think we need to get back to our grassroots, improve our research, our development, and keep on with the training.
Yeah, I'll add to that. We were at a meeting in Stillwater, several of us up here, and we were talking about the founding of IGSHPA and the word, and you talked about the research and the education, but the other part that was in the original charter was promotion of the technology and the industry, and kind of the elephant in the room here, because all the questions that seem to be asked are around that particular topic, right, is promoting the industry. And, we had a great lobbying effort. IGSHPA's done really well from, the education and training perspective, but there is a void in our industry of this promotion that we're talking about. But, I think that IGSHPA's well-positioned all the way back to the beginning charter, and you look at the words that were in there, it says promote the geothermal industry and technology. And so I think it's well-positioned to do something. Of course, when we talk about IGSHPA, we're really talking about us and the people that are up here and out there, and everybody's got to take responsibility and partake in making that happen.
All right. Well, we have about 5 minutes left, and one of the most important components to our systems, ground source systems, are the looping. So consumers and contractors are very comfortable with ground source heat pumps. Loop installations appear to be the widely variable and unpredictable, sometimes variable. What can be done to simplify, streamline, and add consistency to looping?
We just make the units. That's the panel. Yeah. Why'd you ask us that?
Save that question for the drilling panel.
That is a very tough question, because depending on where you're at in the country, the drilling, the formations, the drilling conditions, the regulations, the state, maybe local, and so on. And I don't know that I have a very good answer, but I probably have better stories than I have answers. Anyhow, I'll have, somebody will complain about the price of a loop, to do a vertical loop, and what it costs to do the borehole and to get it installed. And I'm just going to get my own rig and just going to do loops ourselves. And I look at them and say, I'll tell you what. On January 15th, stand in your front yard and have your wife just mist a hose at you for about 8 to 12 hours, and then come and tell me if you still want to drill, vertical bores. It's not an easy job. So those of you that do it, hats off to you. But loop installation is tough, and we just mentioned that possibly R&D at IGSHPA finding ways to to get more out of the ground. We still don't have so much conductivity in that ground. So how do we go after it? And that's probably one of the best places, I think, to hopefully, I can't say standardize it, but to help with the cost of the loop installation, because we've never found that one silver bullet yet that makes it that much easier, that much quicker, that much better. We've got ways and things we've done, and a lot of you have been very ingenious on some of your ideas. But that is a very tough question. It's a good one, but it's a tough one.
Michael?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a stab at this, because I'm on a manufacturer's panel here, and I embrace this role, and I embrace a few other roles I've had in this career, and I was a loop contractor. So whenever Sean asked the question, I kind of had a little pause there, because it sent chills up my back, because some of the experiences that I had as a loop contractor. And one of the things that I had found out when you go in, there's no job site that's the same. Okay, you're going to go in, you're going to put a ground loop in. It may be in the same housing development. It may be in the same area, from one commercial building to a smaller commercial building to, say, a hospital or a campus or something like that. And you're thinking, man, we got this handled. So the first job went really well, or the first 10 loops on the job went really well, and then you move over and you're 30 feet away and you're drilling down. And in Oklahoma, as a ground loop contractor running a drilling rig, the worst thing that can ever happen to you is to hit oil or gas. Okay? Big problems. But from the ground loop standpoint, over the decades I've been involved in the industry, I've never turned down or turned my head with no recognition or thought whenever somebody came to me and said, man, we've got a solution that's going to decrease the length of vertical borehole that you need to put in the ground. It's like, man, we've got to look at that. We've got to study it. And that's where IGSHPA comes into play. They can put it into their R&D facility. We have folks at Oklahoma State and other parts of the industry that can play that R&D role. But you never know when you're gonna trip over that diamond that just needs to be shined up a little bit. We may be in a situation where we're offered a geothermal solution, a ground heat exchanger solution, that maybe somebody in their optimism is saying, we can reduce your loop by 40%. If we do the testing and it comes out to 20%, that's great. Or it comes out to 30%, it's even better. But we need to absorb and accept these great ideas that are coming in from different loop technologies. But as a loop contractor, with the technologies that were out there when I was installing loops, the thing that was most important was fine-tuning the process from start to finish of the installation of that ground loop all the way up to where your job stopped. It may be at the building, in the building, or whatever it is. If you don't have a well-defined process throughout that whole ground loop installation side of the project, you're going to flounder. It's going to get messy, it's going to take a lot of extra time, and it's going to be frustrating. So I think some of the things that the collaboration from the loop contractors out there, I think they need to spend some time together and figure out who has the best process and how they can help each other out. And when you're doing your advertising, don't lead with the photo or the video during the loop installation. Okay?
Go with the after, not the before?
Exactly.
Mud flowing down the curb and.
Yeah, don't
sewer
lead
drain.
with that photo. I mean, it's cool, that's part of what you're doing. We all love dirt, we like playing in the dirt, some of us never grow up. But don't lead with that photo. Work on the processes, though. Streamline it, become comfortable with it, and collaborate with your ground loop installing contractor partners out there that are in the room and in your area and the industry. And I think that'll pay dividends. And keep looking at new solutions for ground loops.
Wonderful. Well, that pretty much wraps up our session today. Do each of you have maybe any parting comments? Or
No, I mean, thank you for taking the time, some really good questions. And I think that helps, bring everybody together when we're able to, again, ask questions and at least give you our thoughts. And, the way I look at it, we're conversing back and forth, so thank you.
Anybody else?
Thanks for the
Well,
opportunity.
let's help thank the panel.